mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about my top 10 shows of 2021. I'm sorry I took so long getting this out. If you watched my Euphoria video or my UFC 270 video or my most recent Peacemaker video, you already know, but if you haven't, I'm going to run it down real quick right here. The reason for the delay largely is I went to Anaheim to see UFC 270 for my 40th birthday, and then couple that with like this weird kind of short COVID scare that was like 12 hours long. I think I talk about that on the Peacemaker video, but I'm pretty much 95% right now. I still have a little bit of scratchiness in my throat, but at the end of the day, it just seems like I had a regular fucking cold. Who knew you could still get those? But so that's the reason for the delay. Plus, there were a couple of things that I kind of wanted to finish up watching before I solidified this list, which is good because something I watched did end up making the list. So something that I watched late. So I'm going to hop right into it. I have 10 honorable mentions and I have 10 shows. And I'm going to try to be brief speaking on every single one. Because if I go into too much detail, this video will be too long. But I will say that I'm looking at the list right now. On this list, if you have any interest in hearing more from me about any of the shows that I mentioned, I have done videos for all of these except one of the honorable mentions and one of the ones that made the list. So, and I'll cite those when I get to them. But other than that, so that's 20 shows. Of those 20, 18 of them I've covered on this channel. So if you want to hear more about those, you search them, they'll be there. I also put most of these into a playlist that's called One Mic's Strongest Recommendations or something like that, something to that effect. And I always put kind of like the finale episode of a show that I think is one of the strongest shows. I put the final episode into there. So if you look at that playlist, you'll probably see something that mirrors what I'm about to go over right now. So let's hop right into it. The honorable mentions aren't in order, except for the very last one that I'm going to cite, the 10th one, is my number one honorable mention. And I'll explain why it's given that ranking and why it's also not in the regular top 10. So starting with the honorable mentions. First up, High on the Hog, How African-American Cuisine Transformed America. Sounds like something you wouldn't think would be a great show, but I thought it was gonna be one of those things where they just talk about food. But what made this show so cool is that it tied in the cuisine with history. So like you would have, this food was created in Africa, and then it was brought over here with the slaves, and then the slaves, brought it to America, and now it's become what it is today. And like the host would go visit like these places in Africa where the slaves were at, and where they got taken from. It was like crazy seeing. So, and it's beautifully shot. It's really, really great. Like I said, if you want to hear more about that, I have a whole video on it where I actually go in depth about why it's so good. But trust me, it is a sneaky good fucking documentary series that's not at all only about food. Like it's as much about history as it's about food. Next up, Dexter New Blood. I know people were a little bit conflicted on Dexter, but I thought this was by and large a return to form. I was kind of hard on it at the beginning, and I think around episode 4 or 5 was an episode that I kind of like went off on. But after that, it continued to get better, so much so that it made the first few episodes better by comparison. Like in retrospect, it made those first few episodes better, and I think it's something that will be a better binge than watching week to week. But I felt like it was an appropriate end for Dexter. It felt like Dexter. It felt like kind of like those first 4 seasons, aside from not being in Miami. But I thought Dexter New Blood was a respectable return to form, and I actually had it at number 10 prior to me watching the show that is currently at number 10. Next, Scenes from a Marriage. That was an HBO limited series starring Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain, and basically it's a reimagining of a Ingrid Bergman television series from before, where it's kind of they just swap the genders out, but it's about a married couple who has some problems, and it's a really tough watch, but I thought it was really well done. And those are two of the top actors of present day if you ask me. Like you have like, you know, your De Niro's and your Pacinos and your Meryl Streeps and all of those like classically popular and great actors and actresses. And I think this new era, like Oscar Isaac is the man. I love Oscar Isaac. I love Jessica Chastain. It was a really good series. It's just a tough watch, to be perfectly honest. Handmaid's Tale season 4. Handmaid's Tale. I kind of feel like Handmaid's Tale should be kind of trying to wrap it up, but this was a pretty good season. I think it was, if I remember correctly, I think I like this better than the 3rd season, but it's a show that's kind of starting to wind down, but it had some great moments. It had some great episodes. One moment in particular where I was just like, holy shit, like as far as acting performance with Elizabeth Moss, it was incredible. So Handmaid's Tale season 4, honorable mention. My 5th honorable mention, Amazon's Them. You know, Them got it's like a fucking ghetto ass phrase. Them got slandered on Twitter. But it did get a lot of backlash for being overly graphic, gratuitous, and something that was like not necessary in this day and age. But I feel like it got a raw deal because it did so many things that were really cool and really creative. It added in suspense. It added in like the supernatural. Its visuals were incredible. Like I thought it was a really, really good show. And I feel like it got a raw deal for having a couple of scenes that were just a little bit gratuitous. Conversely, you have a show like The Underground Railroad, which lacks the creativity of Them. It's a straightforward kind of story. It doesn't have, like I said, like supernatural or horror aspects to it. It's your natural slave story. And I'm like, how many fucking slave stories are we gonna get? It's an incredible looking show, but I looked at that and I'm like, so we're gonna trash Them for showing like, you know, black people getting fucked up. Like we're gonna, for the 8 millionth time, but we're gonna trash Them for that, even though Them does all sorts of really cool, creative, and innovating things in this genre. We're gonna trash Them, but we're gonna praise Underground Railroad, even though it's fucking the 8 millionth fucking slave show or film or whatever. I'm like, I don't need an 8 millionth slave thing. Like, that just really frustrated me. I feel like Them did not get a chance. So, if you're curious about Them, I covered that on the channel. Check out those videos, but Them had some really good fucking cool ass moments, man. Really cool. Snowfall season 4 is my 6th honorable mention. Remember, these aren't in order. I'm just reading them off the order that I have them written down here. Snowfall continues to be a really, really good show. Slept on, comes on FX. I covered all of season 4. I'll be covering all of season 5 starting at the end of February. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's just an exciting show. It's a good show. It's a well acted show. It's a well written show. It's about you know, the drug fuck, why can't I remember, what was the war on drugs that happened in the 80s, largely in California, with cocaine. So it's about that, but it's a really good show. Really good show. My 7th honorable mention is Loki, which was my favorite of the Disney Plus Marvel series. I thought Loki was the coolest one, man. It was the most, well, it wasn't the most creative, but it pushed the boundaries, not quite to the level that WandaVision did, but it pushed the boundaries, and it did some really cool stuff with like the multiverse and stuff like that, kind of opening the door for that. Loki is an exceptionally charming and likable character. Whether he's a good guy or bad guy, doesn't matter. Loki is likable no matter what the fuck he's doing. And Owen Wilson was great in that. It was just a really entertaining series. I gave WandaVision props for swinging for the fences, but at the end of the day, the first few episodes of WandaVision, I didn't like. My 8th honorable mention is Hacks, which I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about. Jean Smart. I can't recall Hannah. I can't recall her last name, but really good show. It's about a young struggling comic who gets canceled and she ends up having to find a job where she writes jokes for this older comic who's on the border of getting washed up. And it's kind of like about how they kind of reinvigorate each other's careers via not just the professional relationship, but the personal relationship that they build. Lots of great banter back and forth between them. Pretty good show, but it's like, it to me, it didn't really jump out like the way it seemed to jump out to most critics. But I still really enjoyed it, so I'll put it in there. Number 9, well, the 9th one on my list is Squid Game. I'm sure you've all probably seen it. Squid Game was just fucking entertaining, man. It's something. It was new, it was fresh, and it was fun. Like, and that's really all it comes down to. I have a video for Squid Game on this channel. And then my last honorable mention, which is ranked, this is my number 1 honorable mention, and the only reason it's not in my top 10 is because I just can't wrap my head around putting a reality show in my top 10. I don't even like reality shows. But Love on the Spectrum, season 2. If you know me in real life, you know how much I fucking love Love on the Spectrum. It's a show about people on the autism spectrum trying to find love, going on dates and whatnot. And these people are so fucking charming. And like, I'm such an angry person. I know you can't tell. I'm such an angry person all the fucking time. And this show makes me so happy. And it's so funny because they're so unintentionally funny because they just don't have that filter of what you should say or shouldn't say. So they're just themselves openly and freely. And it's heartwarming, but it's also funny. And I love this show so much. Like, it's literally it's one of my favorite things of all time. Like, but it's just hard for me to put a reality show in a list like that. Like, I'm gonna be like, yeah, The Wire and Love on the Spectrum. Like, I'm not gonna do that. But I love Love on the Spectrum. This is one of the 2 things that I haven't reviewed on this channel, by the way. I said 2 of these 20 I haven't reviewed on this channel. That's the first one. So you've never heard me talk about Love on the Spectrum on this channel. But if you're somebody who's a long-time subscriber to this channel and has watched a lot of my videos, you know I'm serious about my shit. You know, like, if I like something, I'm serious about it. I'm telling you, Love on the Spectrum is the shit, man. It's the shit. I love it so much. So, 12 minutes in, let me get into the top 10. I'm not going to spend any more time on these than I did on the honorable mentions. Like I said, of these 10, 9 of them have reviews on the channel. So if you want to hear more about any of these 9 of these 10 shows, you can find them here on the channel. Number 10 is the one that supplanted Dexter New Blood in the top 10. It's Only Murders in the Building, which I actually enjoyed Only Murders in the Building much more than the 10 spot. Like, I thought that was a really good fucking show, man. Like, it's funny. It's interesting. It's creative. It looks great. The music is great. You know, I always kind of like lean toward things where like the music really enhances the show. And this is one of those things. Like, it's a really great show. The only reason I have it as low as 10 is because they fucking botched the ending, I think. When you have these kind of whodunit shows, I want to be able to look at that show and have seen clues about who could have committed the crime throughout the show. I don't want to feel like I couldn't have guessed it. And the person who did the murder in the show, you couldn't have guessed it. They just go, it's ta-da, it's this motherfucker. You never would have guessed it. Here's their reason. Bye. Like, the ending fucking sucked to me. Like, that aspect of the ending. And that's kind of like, that's the main thing when you really get down to it, is who did it. And I feel like they botched that. But man, 95% of this thing is really fucking good. So I would have put it higher. If they had nailed the landing, this probably would have been somewhere around like 5. Like, it was that good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a season 2. If a season 2 happens, I will definitely be covering it on this channel because I thought that was a great show. Really, really good. I don't even like Martin Short, but he's like the perfect level of like toned down Martin Short on this. Like, he's not completely like, bland. Like, he's just not Martin Short at all. He's still Martin Short, but he's not so extra. And he plays it perfectly. It's a really great show. Number 9 is Invincible, season 1. Animated series, superhero series that comes on Amazon. There's not really much to explain about it. Like I said, I covered it on this channel, but Invincible was such a fun and interesting, different kind of show. And then they took they used the fact that it was animated to really, really push the envelope and man, that was one that was really like every week. I'm like, oh man, let's see what happens here. And the finale of Invincible, the season 1 finale, wow. Like there's still things that even though I haven't watched this in so long, because I feel like Invincible is like the beginning of the year. It's been so long since I've watched it, but there are still things that I remember vividly from that episode, like from the finale, like things that I remember watching because I had a small TV in here that was this way, and it's kind of far. I had it sitting in like a windowsill, and I remember watching the finale and just like having my mind blown. Like, whoa, this is fucking crazy. So, Invincible season 1, loved it. Number 8, Ted Lasso season 2. Ted Lasso is an all-time favorite for me, all time, as far as comedies go, I should say. But I can't put a comedy up there with something that's serious. But having said that, most comedies, even if I love them, wouldn't even make a top 10 list of mine because I just feel like you can't put comedies head to head or shoulder to shoulder with like your serious dramas. But Ted Lasso is so fucking good. And, you know, this season they pushed the envelope with some kind of like bottle episodes that they had to add on. And the bottle episodes, while at the time when I reviewed them, I didn't know, especially the first one, I didn't know about the fact that they had to actually add in 2 episodes after the fact and that they were going to be bottle episodes. So I'm like, why did we diverted from the main story so much? Like, it was really confusing. And I feel like they should have maybe put that out there or something like that because I'm following a narrative and then it's like, boom, here's some shit that has nothing to do with anything. And I'm like, wait, what happened at the end of last week? So it had some issues at the beginning where it kind of felt like it skipped over things I wanted to see. But, you know, at the end of the day, it had one of my favorite moments of the year in episode 8 of season 2. And they nailed the character stuff on this show so fucking good. And it's incredibly funny every week, no matter what. Jason Sudeikis is great. The whole cast is great. I love Ted Lasso. Number 7, Mayor of Easttown. You know, if you were one of the people who was following me on the journey of Mayor of Easttown, you know, we had fun theorizing every week. Kate Winslet knocking out of the park. That little boy twerking into the dining room. That was my favorite fucking part of the whole show. Was that little boy came twerking into the room while they were having a conversation. But, you know, the whodunit aspect of that, getting to follow along with that and theorize, Kate Winslet, all of that shit was great. My man from American Horror Story. I don't know why I'm not remembering names today for some reason when I normally know this guy, Evan Peters. Yes, he was great in this in a different kind of role than we're used to seeing him in. So yeah, that was really good. Number 6, which I just wrapped up, Station 11. Very kind of leftovers vibe to it. Really interesting stuff with relationships as it compares to pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. The premise of the show is that there's a flu of some sort that wipes out, I think it was like 98% of the population or some shit. And then it jumps back and forth between like pre-pandemic, at the time of the pandemic, and then 20 years post-pandemic, what it's like when you don't even have technology anymore and how these people are living, how they're finding joy, the conflicts that they have. And they set up some really big emotional moments that really fucking paid off. Like, I think it's like the only show that caused me to like shed a small tear in the finale. But they fucking earned it and they fucking nailed it. So really great stuff on Station 11. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but if you're somebody who liked The Leftovers, you'll like Station 11. Number 5 is Made, limited series that came on Netflix, starring another person from The Leftovers, Margaret Qualley. Oh, man, I'm fucking up names. Her and Andy McDowell, who is her real life mother, and it stars as like a woman who leaves an abusive relationship and she has to pick up a job as a maid in order to just kind of like make ends meet and raise her kid. And her mom's a complete and total fuck up. Her ex is like one of those people who is like, I was shitty in that moment, but now I got it back together, and then he's shitty again. And it's kind of a generic story in that sense, but Margaret Qualley is incredible in it. Andy McDowell, it took me kind of like the first episode, I'm kind of like, I don't even know if she's in the first episode, but whenever we first see Andy McDowell, I'm like, what is this character she's doing? But once you get used to it and you understand what they're trying to do with that character, having her be a mother that's not really a mother, It does a great job with that too. So Maid has some really great character moments as well. Sad at times, inspiring at times. It's a really great piece of work. I'm not going to be surprised if Maid gets some actual nominations. Number 4, which I don't think is on many people's list, especially particularly this high, but I feel like it got another one. I feel like it got a raw deal. You needed to give it some time. But number 4 is Foundation, season 1 on Apple TV Plus. Foundation was fucking good, man. Like, I know it takes maybe like 4 episodes to kind of really get going, but they had to create the world so you would understand what this world was like. But once they got it going, man, Foundation was really good, man. I'm telling you, if you're a sci-fi person, you missed out if you didn't watch Foundation. Apple put a lot into it, and it fucking paid off. Like, that was a really entertaining show. Lee Pace is great in it. You would know Lee Pace from he played Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's been in a lot of stuff, but that's what immediately comes to mind. But Lee Pace is great in this. Jared Harris, as always. Anything Jared Harris is in, you could probably be like, it's worth watching. Like, this guy doesn't even take shit projects anymore. It's like, if Jared Harris is in it, I'm like, well, it must be good, because everything he does is good. Jared Harris. A couple of other actors and actresses whose names escape me at the moment, but if you watch my videos for Foundation, I knew them at the time, so give me some slack on that. But man, Foundation, really creative. Again, I give extra points to creativity, because we live in a world where everything is fucking remakes and sequels and all this kind of shit that's been rehashed and done over and over and over. So when you give me something I haven't seen before, which the sci-fi genre is kind of knocking it out of the park right now with Foundation. Just wrapped up The Expanse, Dune, which, even though I'm not going to do a movies video because I feel like I haven't seen enough 2021 movies to make a top 10 movies, Dune would be number 1 even if I had seen all the movies. Like, Dune would be number 1 because Dune was fucking incredible. Fucking incredible. So, side tangent, Dune is my favorite movie of 2021, and there's a video for that as well. But back to Foundation. It was surprisingly good. You just gotta kind of sit through the world building aspects that happen kind of in like the first 4 episodes or so. But it's something that was deemed unmakeable. And if you're somebody who's a reader of the book, like, the book fans seem to not like it, but they've always said like it's something that's really hard to adapt just because of the nature of it. But I haven't read the book, so I don't have that hang up. And as a show on its face, it was really fucking good, man. Number 3, Yellow Jackets, season 1. I just finished covering Yellow Jackets here. If you've been watching it, you already know. Yellow Jackets, fun. Suspenseful, exciting. You get some whodunit stuff. You get some supernatural stuff. You get to see kind of like Lord of the Flies kind of shit in the past. This is another one that takes place in multiple timelines. You have a 1990s timeline that takes place after a plane crash with this soccer team, and they're stranded in the woods, a girls' soccer team. They're stranded in the woods, teenagers. And you got present day where they're adults and they're kind of dealing with how they live their lives as adults despite, what they went through in the woods, which we haven't seen in totality because it's only season 1. And they also are dealing with like a blackmail scheme. And you throw in supernatural stuff. And it's got a lot going on, but it's all incredibly entertaining, incredibly intriguing, incredibly well acted. Christina Ricci knocks it out of the park on this. Juliette Lewis knocks it out of the park on this. Melanie Linsky knocks it out of the park on this. All of the fucking actresses who play the teenage versions of them knock it out of the park. Another Leftovers connection. One of the... I don't even know how to call her child actress, but one of the ones who plays a teenager. She was also on The Leftovers. But yeah, Yellow Jackets on the channel. Check that out too. Number 2, Dave, season 2. Not on a lot of lists, but it's because enough people didn't watch it. If you watched it, it'd be on your list. This is a show that took risk this year, and they paid off. They had an episode that, again, Leftovers being mentioned for the 8 millionth time, that seemed very similar to my favorite episode of Leftovers, season 2, episode 8, called International Assassin. Dave had an episode that was similar to that, to the point where I tweeted Lil Dicky to ask him if it was an inspiration for the episode. He didn't answer, but I asked. It's funny as shit, and they did a great job of taking individual character moments early in the season that kind of felt like they weren't that big of a deal, but then building them up throughout the season to where at the end of the season, you get these big moments. Another show that actually squeezed a tear out of my eye in the finale because of all of the work that they put into these relationships and these characters. So you couple in great character development with great big emotional earned character moments, with comedy, with creativity. Like, it did it all. Everything that Atlanta gets praised for, Dave did this season. They did it. So if you're a fan of Atlanta, you're going to like Dave. Unless you're one of those people that just like, oh, a white person did it. It's like white Atlanta, so I'm just going to hate it. If you're somebody with half a brain and you don't think like that, you'll fucking love Dave. And it was incredible, man. Like, watch, and these were my most watched videos, by the way. Well, not all of them. Yellow Jackets was my most watched videos collectively. But my video for the Dave finale is my most watched video on this channel. That's not a coincidence. It was that fucking good. People were watching it, people were loving it, and they wanted to talk about it. Go find that video, the season 2, episode 10 Dave video. It's my most watched video. It's got a ton of comments, a ton of conversation, and all the comments are people walking in, applauding, standing ovation comments. That was incredible. What a great episode. What a great payoff. They fucking nailed it. All kinds of stuff, like people, I cried watching it. These are the kind of comments that I was getting on that video because it was such a great episode. And you don't get, I didn't put it in there because the finale was great. I put it in there because everything that led up to the finale is what made the finale great. You can't do that if you don't put in the work on these characters. And this show did that in season 2. It was good season 1, but season 2, it became great. And I shout out to Lil Dicky for really pushing the envelope with this one and coming out with something incredible. And my number 1 show of 2021, if you follow this channel, you knew what it was the minute you saw this video pop up in your feed. Number 1 is Succession season 3. Succession is, in my opinion, now one of the best shows ever. After only 3 seasons, I get the criticism of it kind of feels like it's spinning in place a little bit. I get that, and I agree with it. But Succession is so incredibly well written that it boggles my mind every episode how they manage to have moments that are so layered where it's like you have what's happening on the surface, but then you have to read between the lines to get the extra shit that comes along from paying close attention, understanding these characters' motivations, understanding what's happened in the past between them, thinking about, okay, if I move this piece this way, how is it going to affect these other pieces? Like, try to almost kind of like play along with the strategy, the political backstabbing, like that aspect of Game of Thrones, the political piece, the vying for the throne, especially in those first 4 or 5 seasons. If that's your kind of shit, Succession is that, but better. Like so if you like the political stuff on Game of Thrones, Succession is that, but better. And Succession season 3 is another one that nailed the fucking finale. Like, I'm talking perfect 10, fucking gymnastics off the fucking pommel horse, like stuck the landing, perfect score, nailed it. And they said after that episode that episode was like Succession's red wedding, and I couldn't agree more. It really was. It was an incredible reveal. It was an incredible moment. It was something that had been built up to that I didn't know what was going to happen. But I was saying throughout the whole season, something's going to happen with this character. Not even something's going to happen. This character is going to have a moment at some point at the end of this season, and it's going to be spectacular. And it was. And Succession is something that the writing on this show, like, you can't even really put into words how good it is. It's amazing. So Succession is my number 1. It's not even close. Like, Dave was my number 1 until Succession, but Succession is like way ahead of the pack here. Like, there's nothing on TV that's this good by a long shot. So, well, I'm not going to say that. There's still stuff I haven't seen. I'm in the process of working through Yellowstone, which I hear is great. I want to shout out For All Mankind because I feel like I haven't watched it yet. I started episode 1, season 1, but I feel like that's probably something that would have made my top 10 had I seen it. But from what I saw, Succession leaps and bounds ahead of everything else. Incredible show. So that's all for best of 2021. Again, like I said, of the 20 shows that I just mentioned, 18 of them are reviewed on this channel. If you want to watch any of those videos about those, and I will see you guys, I guess, for best of 2022 this time next year. Peace.